Don't make comments on what we look like here. It's been a very difficult decision for the panel because there have been so many outstanding performances this year.
Still think head and shoulders the best goalie in the championship.
More in the one game. If you had a half-back line of Colin Boyle, Peter Crowley and Frank McGlynn.
Well, then Paul Murphy.
No, Paul Murphy.
Paul Murphy misses out.
I have been very impressed with him. Crowley might be the main reason Kerry won the right.
But the question is not that he played at them all. Did he play well in them all?
Yeah, he did.
Are you going to pick Lacey?
I don't know.
No, he didn't.
I don't think so.
No.
Is he
It's
in
just
all
to
your
find a
teams?
place
Is he in your team? Is Michael Murphy in your team of the year?
Yeah, he would be.
Yeah.
Is he on your team?
Yeah.
Nobody disputes that.
Yeah.
Nobody disputes that.
Neil Gallagher was comfortably voted in as a midfielder, and now you're dropping him to
In order to accommodate somebody.
because you're not making a call up into your forwards.
Our lines are always very, very difficult to pick. Okay.
You can't pick a fella on the best team of the year on the basis of just his match.
We have one call to make. Might as well reveal it to you as well as everybody else later on. Yeah, it was a very lively meeting, I can tell you, a while ago picking it. But so, along with Pat, Kevin and Martin, we're glad to welcome Kieran Whelan, Colin O'Rourke and Martin Carney in selecting our Sunday Game Team of the Year. Joe Brolly was meant to be with us as well, but he had prior engagements with his organ donation project. So let's get straight into the team. Pat, you're going to give us our goalkeeper of the year for 2014.
Yeah, and our goalkeeper was a unanimous choice by everyone, I think, and that's Paul Durcan of Donegal. Now, he didn't have a great day at the office today, conceded 2 goals, and certainly his kick-outs were poor. But up to this game, 5 championship matches, he'd conceded only 2 goals. And arguably, his play was the key in Donegal beating Dublin, where his kick-outs were absolutely magnificent on the day. And the vital save he made after 20 minutes against Diarmuid Connolly. So, outside of Stephen Cluxton, he's the second best goalie of the modern era, but undoubtedly by a country mile the best goalie in this year's championship.
Brilliant, OK. And you're giving us our number 2, our right corner back.
Well, I'll tell you this now, we really had a debate over number 2 as to who should we pick, and it was a split decision. It was a toss-up between Aidan O'Mahony of Kerry and Eamon McGee of Donegal. And we gave it to Aidan O'Mahony, and I'll tell you why, for a couple of reasons. Aidan was written off as a footballer a couple of years ago.
By who?
By even people within the county, that the legs were gone, the pace was gone, but he was getting very few regular starts, but he's a warrior. He's a warrior. And today, on the big stage, in Croke Park, All-Ireland final day, he delivered a masterful performance. And do you know what was remarkable about it? He had 31 possessions. Only James O'Donoghue of Kerry had more possessions than Aidan O'Mahony, so he's our choice for number 2.
And at full-back?
Well, at full-back, I think this was another unanimous decision, because that was Neil McGee. Because Neil McGee has been, by a country mile, the best full-back in this year's championship. He's been the man marker on all the key players that Donegal have faced, whether it was Conor McManus, whether it was Bernard Brogan, whether it was Jamie Clark. And today, he had a great game on James O'Donoghue. And just to show how versatile a player Neil McGee is, he came up and scored a wonderful point. So Neil McGee is our unanimous choice for number 3 on the team of the year.
All right. And Kevin McStay, give us our left corner back.
No debate here at all. When we were doing the full back line, penciled in Keith Higgins immediately. He's just been a tremendous performer for Mayo all season, throughout Connacht and the All-Ireland series. And I'd say, Des, we'll remember especially his duel with James O'Donoghue down in Limerick, where both players put in incredible performances, but Higgins came out with his honour intact because of just the magnificence of his defensive work.
All right, and we move to the half-back line then, Kevin, and number 5, right half-back.
Yeah, and amazing, this guy just crashed into the championship, in my mind, at the All-Ireland series, Paul Murphy. But in fact, when you go back into it and drill back down, you see that he picked up a lot of the top players in the opposition. He had a very good Munster campaign, and of course today topped it off with really a top-class performance. On the biggest stage, we always say that's the place to perform, and no doubt Paul did. OK, and it moves us then to centre half-back, Martin.
Yeah, I think this man's a manager's dream. I think he's the first player you put in your team sheet, and that's Peter Crowley. He does exactly what he's told. He'll play defensively, he covers back, he does that defensive job for Kerry, and the big hits we've seen early on that he puts in the game, and he lets the other players play the football and go forward, and he does his job well. So no doubt about it, Peter Crowley has been brilliant. He's back to real stand-up centre half-back, and he's very, very good.
At left half-back then we had another split vote.
Yeah, there's a debate about it, and a lot of talk about Donegal player Frank McGlynn, and the other player was Colin Boyle, who had a great season as well. Both of them has had a great season, but Colin Boyle, we always go back to looking at leaders on the field. And the game when Kerry were 5 points up against Mayo, they needed somebody to lead, and Colin Boyle was that man. He took the game to them, and that's the reason they got the draw. So Colin Boyle, he's had a very good season, and he's our left half back.
Okay. Kieran, you've had your many a day in midfield. Who makes the team?
Yeah,
midfield?
there was good debate around midfield, but the first choice was an obvious one. David Moran, ravaged with injuries over the last 2 years. He put in one of the performances of the year against Mayo the last day, getting 47 possessions. He came into the team in the Galway game, kicked a point immediately, and came in and kicked 2 inspirational points in the drawing game. And great kick pass of the ball, great vision, all-round midfielder, and fully deserved of a spot.
Okay, and the other midfielder?
With him, it was Neil Gallagher, Donegal's go-to man. I thought he was excellent today. He didn't have the support of runners coming through, but he kept battling to the very end in a good battle with Anthony Marr. The last day against Dublin, he was exceptional. He was one of the key reasons why Donegal got a platform in the middle of the park against Dublin.
Right. Well, and he was double marked at times today, of course, the point that you were making.
Yeah, absolutely. He kept going to the very end, and he's the type of footballer that, I marked him a few years ago, and he's improved with age. Even his mobility's improved, his vision, his awareness. As he's got older, he's become a much better player.
So he'll be great next year. Colm O'Rourke, the half-forward line.
Well, I got all the easy ones. I think that number 10 right half forward would be Paul Flynn. I think he's the ultimate wing forward in any team because he's a defender, he's a midfielder for kickouts. Cluxton finds him with a lot of kickouts, and he also scores a lot up front as well. So his work rate is phenomenal in all the games. His fitness levels are superb. So he's the sort of player I think that every county are looking for as a wing forward.
Right. And a centre half forward, again, lots of debate about who plays in what position.
Yeah, lots of debate, and I suppose there could be a load of fellas here, but for me, Dermot Connolly was the standout forward of this year and maybe the best player in the year. His performances for St Vincent's, and I prefer club football to county football, so his performances for Vincent's in winning the club title were absolutely fantastic, and anyone who has seen the latest goal that he scored on YouTube would testify to his pure skill. Maybe the best player in the country just at the moment, but an outstanding forward.
OK, and that leaves one other position at left half forward.
Yeah, well, Ryan McHugh didn't have a good game today compared to what he's had all year, but I think that without him in the semi-final against Dublin, Donegal wouldn't have been in the All-Ireland final at all. He was superb in the Ulster Championship. His work rate and fitness is phenomenal, and today just things didn't go very well for him, but I think that over the summer up to now, he has been absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, and I should point out, by the way, that Ryan's dad, Martin, was not involved in selecting the half-forward line because of his son's involvement. Martin Carney, our full-forward line.
Well, number 13 has to be James O'Donoghue. Some of the games I saw him in this year, he was just phenomenal. He's mercurial, he's accurate, he's a great team man. His skill levels are just out of this world. And I thought I think Kevin has mentioned it already, the joust that he had with Keith Higgins in Limerick was something that I carry with me to the grave. The memory of it was wonderful. It was fair, it was magnificent to watch, it was gladiatorial, and the best head-to-head I've seen.
You'll have to start following him on Twitter now as well.
I don't, what's Twitter? At my age, you don't do Twitter.
I don't know, you'd be worth following James maybe. Full forward, and a lot of debate at full forward, obviously.
Oh, a lot of debate, it must be said, because the big man today, who got the vital goal in the second half, he got quite an amount of backing and support. But ultimately, we figured that Michael Murphy through the season was outstanding for Donegal. They wouldn't have been in the All-Ireland final without his leadership, without the belief that he imparts to others around him. Now, he hadn't got his greatest game today, but Michael Murphy, to my mind, has been the reason why Donegal won an All-Ireland a couple of years ago and why they've continued to be one of the top teams in the country.
And that leaves one other position, top of the left.
Well, we went for Cillian O'Connor, like Tony's lad. And Cillian, to me, is the leading scorer in the country this year. He has come back from serious injuries. He's an amazing player, wonderful attitude to the game, extremely calm when put in situations where he has to finish. He's going to get better and better, a very, very young lad. But just the attitude that he brings to the game and, again, his ability to link in with other people, to my mind, just shows you he is a quality player in the making.
All right then, well let's get an overview of the team then. The easiest selections, the positions that proved most. There you see the team. We have 5 from Donegal and Kerry, 3 from Mayo and 2 from Dublin. That's the split. 5-5-3-2 is the split. Paul Murphy, Pat, would be the one who came from nowhere really there. Is that fair to say?
It's been a Ryder Rovers type. I mean, Paul Murphy was a lad who never played minor with the county. Played 1 year under 21. To most Kerry supporters outside of Rathmore and East Kerry, he was absolutely unheard of this year. And he's been an absolute revelation, because if you think of all the guys, he scored 1-2 in the championship, probably the first ever Kerry cornerback to score a goal in the championship. He's man-marked Podge Collins against Clare, Paul Kerrigan, Shea Walsh Galway, Cillian O'Connor, and today Ryan McHugh. Oh, what a year the young lad has had. An absolute brilliant year. And a very level-headed guy, very good guy, one for the future.
The Kieran Donaghy issue is obviously a big talking point, Colm.
Yeah, well, I suppose Kieran Donaghy, because he only played, 2 games and a bit, and of course he did make the difference when he came on against Mayo in the last few minutes. He set up that famous goal for James O'Donoghue. An act of great inspiration from Eamon Fitzmaurice, we will call it at the time. Certainly not desperation, but, today he was maybe the difference in the final. But you must judge a player over a whole year.
Kieran, who else was unlucky, maybe?
I think Des is always difficult to pick the forward line. I thought Johnny Buckley was exceptional for Kerry All. He was one of the dark horses. He contributed a lot, very good in the Munster final, kicked an inspirational point today at a crucial stage. Paul Geaney in the inside forward line didn't do a whole lot wrong all year either. And I think that 6 was very, very difficult to pick. It was difficult that you had... They're all from the 4 semi-finalists, and I suppose there was other big performance. Desi Mount from Monaghan, young Colin O'Riordan, the wing-back from Tipperary, was fantastic. Andy Mallon from Armagh. There was guys that contributed hugely to that county this year.
The makeup of the team from the 4 counties sort of reflects the standard in this year's championship, because those 4 counties that are represented here were by a long distance the best 4 counties in this year's championship.
Martin?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit unfortunate that Aidan O'Shea isn't included in it. To me, he was outstanding for Mayo, wonderful leadership, and I sometimes think that collision that he had with Cillian O'Connor in the All-Ireland semi-final replay in Limerick was a seminal moment in the game, and really he never recovered his senses probably for the remainder of it, but again, he was magnificent, and I felt we might have given him a little bit more consideration than we did.
All right, it was a vote.
He's not from your club,
He lives down the road from me.
Kevin, your neighbours aside, who else was unlucky?
Down the road from me, no. I slightly disagree with Pat in that the 4 semi-finalists were a country mile, and the rest, let's reflect on the night Armagh had their quarter-final. They had them beaten Donegal at that stage. Let's call a spade a spade. Did it end up a point or 2 in the end?
One.
Oh, yeah, one in the end. So so out of that team, I'm thinking Tony Kernan, Stephen Fokker, yes, Andy Mallon for sure. But they're coming teams. And that's my view with them. So already we're just leaving 2014 behind and looking forward to 2015. They're going to be serious teams out there.
There's a funny thing that night that Armagh didn't get a game out of Jamie Clark. The impact from Jamie Clark that would have expected to get.
But how could you get an impact out of Jamie Clark, who was one of the greatest forwards in the modern game, when for most of the game he's been sent back in the backs to stand in front of the full back line? It's like putting Lionel Messi covering the full back or the centre half. It's a wasted use of a brilliant forward.
Well, judging by size, SIGHS, I don't think everyone agreed with you there, Martin.
Well, I think talking about different players, yeah, I don't agree with what you say, but talking players, I think Shane Walsh of Galway's a player that deserves a mention, the quality. I think he is again a player for the future, but the way it is you have to be one on your provincial championships, you have to be one of your provincial championships, and you have to be getting to All-Ireland finals.
Yeah, well, Jamie Clark had a very good league campaign for Armagh. He wasn't as good in the championship. Another fella I thought did very well was Drew Wiley, the full back for Monaghan, who had a very good year as well.
But see, it's interesting, Colin, we look at today's game where James O'Donoghue, the top forward of the country, taken out to play in the half-forward line. It's the way the game is changing. Didn't score today. It's the way the whole game is changing. I was along with Peter Cannon there one day. I said, would you like to play in this modern-day football line? He said, you'd be probably wing half-back on the team because that's your best bet.
All right, well, now we're going to name our Sunday Game Player of the Year. And this is unusual. It's a live vote by our panel, a straight call. I'll make notes, and we'll start with you, Pat. Your Player of the Year.
No question about it. James O'Donoghue.
OK, James O'Donoghue.
Full stop.
Kevin?
Well, I do admire James O'Donoghue. There's no doubt about that, and I think he's been fantastic this year. But a man who influences the game immediately, directly, and consistently. Michael Murphy is the reason Donegal are in the final today, and he, played a major part in getting them there. So, for me, Michael has every right to be considered for Player of the Year.
So he is your vote, yeah?
Yeah.
Martin?
I think it's very close between two players, Dermot Connolly and James O'Donoghue. And I just go for James O'Donoghue because, even his performance today, unselfishness of playing out the field to do the job for the team and everything else. And his performance against Cork was one of the best performances we've seen.
Okay. Kieran?
I think it's funny in the team of the year, the Dubs were forgotten about in the discussion there, and fellas that could have been added. Just one bad performance went against us, but James O'Donoghue has been top class all year. He is a serious talent. But I'm going to wear my county hat in this one and go with Dermot Connolly. I thought club championship and his contribution to Dublin this year was
He's been
immense.
brilliant as well. Now, it's not even your county hat. He has been fantastic.
County hats aren't allowed. Yeah. Colin?
Well, I'd be absolutely independent on this one if I pick a dub. But for me, Dermot Connolly, his performances for St Vincent's have been fantastic. So from the very beginning of the year, right until his last game, he was fantastic. I'd agree with Martin, James O'Donoghue or Dermot Connolly. For me, Dermot Connolly over the years been the best player. A fella like Paul Flynn also has had an exceptional year as well. And as Kieran says, just because maybe of one bad performance by Dublin, we overlooked them. But for me, Connolly has been the man.
Okay, so it's level going into the last vote. 2 for James O'Donoghue, 2 for Dermot Connolly, 1 for Michael Murphy.
Is the door open there?
Listen, dictate where you're going tonight. So, where we're all going tonight.
The door open for me there.
Well, no, your vote, your Player of the Year.
No, the two guys that I would go for would be Dermot Connolly and James O'Donoghue. Seriously, I thought Dermot Connolly's performance in the All-Ireland Club final was brilliant. I thought his points in the semi-final against Donegal were as good a scores as I've seen. The one in the second half where he slalomed through a load of Donegal players was just a point from the gods. But young O'Donoghue, to me, is just magical. I would watch him any day of the week. He's the person, as far as I'm concerned, Des, who inspires others to play.
So your vote goes to
James O'Donoghue.
James O'Donoghue. Yeah, I finally got it out of him. Joe Bradley wouldn't have done it in court. So it's official. The Sunday Game Player of the Year is James O'Donoghue from the Legion Club in Killarney. Congratulations to him. Well done, James. He'll have to buy a drink for the lads afterwards. All right, well, that probably sums up what has been a great season for us all to reflect on.
Expending every bit of energy, putting their bodies on the line for the honour and glory of the jersey, of the club, of the county and of the parish. It was a really memorable night.
Did Knocknagow win the championship that year?
Actually, it was written 5 years before the GA was founded. So.
Or literary cricket.
I'll talk about it later.
It needs explaining. Kevin McStay, your personal moment of the year.
Well, the venue in Limerick was a fantastic, just a buzz, a magnificent buzz for both counties that were involved. But before getting into it was the lead up to the qualifiers. I know we talk about venues down the country, but Croke Park is where the game should have been. And this goal by Emmett Bolton was the score for me of the year. It was an incredible piece of action. Kildare really within a moment of a breakthrough, and look at that for a goal, Des. You just will not see a better one all year. It was magnificent. The run, the pass, the timing, and right across the keeper. What a goal.
So that's score of the season for Kevin. Upset of the season for you, Martin?
Yeah, I'll put on my county hat. Maybe, from the point of view. I think that this was the greatest performance I've ever seen from a Donegal team. Now, maybe people say after the first 20 minutes you wouldn't have thought that, but I just think, we've given no chance going into it, and the players believed themselves. And it's just hateful it wasn't the final. We said that earlier on from a Donegal point of view, but it's a performance. After this week, it'll live in the memories of Donegal people. I know Dublin will be disappointed with it, Kieran, but this was, to me, the way they played. They dug deep, they hung in there when it was important, they showed leadership, and when they got the chance of the goals, they took the goals. And I think as someone, when we look back on this year, I think it was, in my time watching Donegal play, and that was the greatest performance ever by a Donegal team.
Okay. Kieran, you picked a 5-minute period from the season.
Yeah, it was, I suppose, the last 5 minutes of the first game between Mayo and Kerry, and we needed something to ignite the championship into life. There's faith was beginning to wane a small bit in terms of the quality, and this was a great game. But to be 5 points down, it looked like Mayo were going to close the game out. Donaghy, who had been out of form, out of touch, comes off the bench and a long ball in from David Moran, and then Kieran O'Leary to step up in the last minute to get that score. James O'Donoghue got a chance then to win it, and you probably would have expected that he was going to tap that ball over the bar, but it was we needed something. It was a superb game. It set the tempo for the Limerick game. Credit to both teams in that duel, but I thought it was something that really ignited the championship and put football back in a positive light, because we badly needed it.
Well, Colin, one of the young men who lit it up was your choice.
Yeah, well, I like to be the grouch. I think it was a poor championship overall. Apart from the 2 semi-finals, I think the standard in a lot of games was poor. But here we had a fella called Shane Walsh, not too many would know him, a ball coming in from a 45, traps it with his right foot and jinks and kicks it over with his left foot. And it was good to see that sort of skill. But I think that the championship is in serious need of reform. A lot of poor games, particularly in Leinster. I think the standard is dreadful and completely lopsided, with only 5 or 6 teams with a realistic chance of winning the All-Ireland.
You've just opened so many cans of worms in 30 seconds.
I agree with Colin. The format is stale, Dennis. There's nothing about it. We've been saying this for a while. The format is stale.